How can we live according to a lifestyle of abundance? That's the topic that we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager, and I have an amazing guest with a wonderful message today. His name is Donald Griswold. He's the writer, director, and producer of the feature documentary film Abundant that explores giving, scarcity, and abundance by entering the world of people who have donated kidneys to complete strangers. Welcome, Donald. I am so excited to share your very important life-saving message with the audience today.
Thanks, Tina. I'm glad to be here today.
Donald, can you talk about what inspired you to create this film? It is not a small thing to create a film, as I know. So this is a huge thing that takes years to do, lots of money. Why this topic, Donald?
Well, I've always wanted to make a documentary film, and that's what I studied in college, and that had always been a dream of mine. And I kind of put that on hold like a lot of artists do, and, went about my creative work in marketing and the business world, and basically, went on to have a family. And those concerns really were my primary focus for many, many years. And my children are grown now. I just reached a point in my life where I had time and availability to use my creative gifts. And I'm a writer primarily. So I started as a novelist. I wrote a novel. It was about a documentary filmmaker. The story there was about giving and an exploration of giving. So very similar to this. And one of the plot conventions in the book was about a documentary that the filmmaker was making about organ donation. And when the book came out, it was a minor subplot. And when the book came out, that was the only question I got from everybody is, are you going to write a sequel about this documentary? They seemed so fascinated in it. I spent just a little bit more time doing research, and this topic is so misunderstood. And there's so much about the organ donation process and world that it seems like it would be a niche topic, but it really is the story of all of us and how we choose to be interconnected with people and how we're willing to be generous or not. And as I began to explore that topic more, it became obvious that the documentary didn't need to stay in the book. We needed to actually make it.
I love what you said about this being about interconnectedness. I did notice that when I watched the screener of this film. So interesting how these lives were all connected with each other, even though they never intended to find connection through this. Can you talk about what this revealed to you? What was the most surprising thing that you found when you were investigating this world of people who went from being normal, self-interested people, like we mostly all are, to be honest, to being so selfless as to give part of their body to someone they didn't even know?
It's really fascinating and unexpected. And like the film says, that about one person in a million each year gives what's called a non-directed donation. And that's as simple as beginning the process and saying, I want to give. I don't care who gets it. I think it starts off more of some kind of almost like a calling where something inside tells these people that there is something that they can do to help. And there are researchers who have tried to break this down from a scientific point of view. And there are spiritualists who have tried to quantify this. What I've discovered with this is I think it's really a kind of a combination of all those things, and mostly being in the right place at the right time. Because I think that most of these people would tell you they are not, we'd look at them and say, you gave an organ to a stranger, it saved that person's life. You're a hero. They don't really think of themselves that way. They simply think of themselves as doing something good in that moment and at that time. And as we kind of explore the stories, and we worked with the storytellers in the film to refine their stories and really get down to what their motivations were, a lot of it was very much in the moment. And once you have that idea and that realization or enlightenment, or they call it the lightning strike moment, where you just suddenly there's the eyes are open. It's very hard to let go of that idea. That was the surprising thing, is that I didn't really feel like anybody that I met was predisposed to this. I felt like they just found themselves at the right place at the right time with the right information at the right stage in their life. And that means it could be any of us. And that I think is why the film is getting the response that it is whether, you're not one in the million who gives the kidney, but the way they're telling the stories, the way it connects with you, you understand it.
It's so interesting to see how people went from just an ordinary day to what you said was this call in their life, this lightning strike moment. They don't even know where the call came from. They just know that they were moved to do something that was outside of themselves, something that was others focused. At first, they may have been thinking this was for the other person, but that was not the result. I think in these cases, if you look at each one, the person that was changed the most was the donor. Would you say that's true?
They say that too. There's a whole medical story behind kidney donation that goes on for several decades, and the technology, the medicine, it moves forward at a certain rate, and the story really kind of lags behind it. I think it is common now in this country to get a non-directed donation. It's rare, but it's not uncommon for that to happen. As you saw in the film, there's an explanation of a lot of different ways that you can wind up with a kidney without having a direct donor. Those are called kidney change or paired exchanges. There's a lot of ways that a positive outcome can save your life. But when the medical field tells the story, they tend to tell it in terms of the outcome, the life saved, their tragic story that they were suddenly, now have had restored life. That's great, and that is what we should all be focused on. But there's this enormous story about what it takes to get there to do that just really is not told on this magnitude. And that's why I think another reason why I think that the film is having so much traction is that it tells a major part of this story. At no part in the film do we talk about someone who needs a kidney. I mean, you hear about people who need them, but the focus is really about what and why would make somebody get onto this path and see it through to completion. And that is very much an untold story in the medical field, but that is a story that all of us can relate to. And I think that's why the movie hums so well.
Donald, what about doing this interview process actually changed you while you were doing these interviews?
That's a really good question, because as you know, you've seen the film, I narrate the film very lightly. It doesn't need much pushing along. You hear my voice early, and that wasn't supposed to happen. We were 2 months away from starting post-production, and we were literally on our last shoot. One thing led to another, and I had to mic myself up because there were just some things that I had to say, because I tried to approach this from a very objective point of view. And, when you work on something for several years, it's kind of hard to work closely with people and maintain that objectivity. And I had made very close friends, and I would say friends for life, with many of the people who were involved in the film, specifically the cast members. And you go through this together, especially when it's a documentary and there's a storyline and a narrative that you're following, and you're all kind of in the same boat. And I had tried to stay separated, and it just became very clear to me as we got toward the end of this that I was being given a gift with all of this, and I was resisting that because I was trying to remain objective in the making of the film. The interview that you see with me in the film, that's where it all kind of broke. And I had to admit that the thing that I saw in the donors and in their stories, I had been experiencing it myself, but just in a very different way. And these people, particularly one of the storylines in the film, gave this whole thing to me. And when I realized that, I realized I had to share that part of the story, because that's the part that touches all of us. I did nothing more than help people communicate. As the director and as the producer of this story, all I did was facilitate. And that is something all of us can do. You don't have to be a kidney donor to help somebody who needs a kidney. You just need to help spread the word, to tell the story, get involved somehow, not be silent. And the film is pretty emotionally overwhelming the first time you see it. But if you watch it again, you realize that is very much a walk away from the film, as this could easily be you. And you don't have to donate a kidney to do it.
Allowing yourself to be changed for the betterment of somebody else is kind of a big takeaway from this film that you wouldn't expect. You wouldn't expect to see that. That is such a powerful film. And there's choreography involved with it, which is a fascinating element. Can you talk about why you chose to structure this with the choreography, the people being part of the set? The people that you don't see, the people you don't recognize, being part of the set and supporting the person at the center of the spotlight. I think that's kind of an interesting unspoken element that is symbolic in this story.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite parts because that was a really, really risky creative choice. And we all knew it. Every one of us knew it. But I thought it was absolutely necessary for a couple of reasons. One is that creatively, we are trying to elevate the art of storytelling to a cinematic level. And one person on the stage telling a story just is not cinematic. No matter how you cut that, no matter how short the stories are, that is not going to hold an audience's attention for, a feature length. So I knew we needed to have something visually interesting, visually compelling that told the story, made sense, and told the story in another way. Dance creates meaning with space and with movement. So that was just another way of cueing the audience, whether it was the audience in the theater or the viewing audience, cueing them as to what the emotion was. There was a lot of interpretation. There's a few instances where the stories really lend themselves to a movement interpretation. Laura Diaz-Moore's story is the one that comes to mind there. I think that the choreography with that one, Mike Speck's story, is very well choreographed and set. And we couldn't do that without the visual element and the participation of others. And also, this movie and the stories at their most basic level are about connection. And you can't have one person standing on a stage and talk about connection. They have to be connected with something. And that's one thing that I like about starting with Donna's story. In the stage show, Donna's story was not the first story, but we put her story first because the incredible one-on-one interaction that she has with one of the dancers who plays multiple characters in her life really illustrates the importance of having the ensemble cast there, but also letting the storytellers elevate their story beyond just stand up and let it rip. So that was a very challenging creative part of it. I will tell you just for fun that, it was a national cast of storytellers. They did all of their workshops over Zoom during COVID. They had never met until the 2 days before the show. And the day before the show was the first time that the choreography and the storytellers were in the same place for one rehearsal. And they only got 2 rehearsals before we actually turned the cameras on, before a live audience at a massive theater.
Wow, that's incredible. It's a miraculous way to bring that story to life in some respects, I would say.
It was miraculous in many ways, one of which was that nobody expected the storytellers to get through their stories without mistakes or stops or technical problems or nerves. None of them were professional storytellers. They were all amateurs doing this for the first time at the highest degree of difficulty while being recorded for a feature film. Yeah. So I wanted that tension in the room when we shot this so that it had a live feel to it, and it does. But, one of the things that could go wrong is, especially when, with so many moving parts, is that, if people don't know where the lights are, if they don't know where the focus cues are, then the recording is bad. So one of the things that the ensemble cast, we had weeks to work with them. They knew what the layout was going to be. So when you watch it carefully, you can see them kind of guiding the storytellers around there, hitting their marks for the cameras and the lights.
Oh, that's so fascinating. That's interesting inside touch on that. Donald, how can people find this film and watch it for themselves?
So on March 26th, we will start streaming on a new streaming service called stuff.io. And basically it's not a subscription streamer. It is you buy the film and it is yours forever. And it's not like when you buy it on Amazon, you're buying a license to watch it. This belongs to you. And when you go to buy it, you'll see you can own it, you can sell it, you can give it. There's all kinds of things that are possible with Abundant because you actually own it. And you'll be able to buy that at abundantmovie.com. You just go there. It's just one credit card purchase and you're good to go. Watch the movie and enjoy it. But we're also going to be playing in theaters still. The kidney community is very active in sponsoring screenings of the film around the country. So what I would suggest to your listeners is obviously get a copy, watch it. But if you want to see it in the theater and have the experience of what it's like to watch it with others, or if you know somebody who has kidney disease or this may be in their future or they're on dialysis, find a sponsored screening, bring them and bring some friends. You'll be surprised at the conversations that get started.
Are there any other links that you would like to share?
Mainly everything is at abundantmovie.com. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. At abundantmovie.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. That's a great way to get updates, especially about screening events. But we also, have social media on Instagram and on Facebook. The kidney community has a really strong foothold on Facebook. So even though Facebook's one of the older social mediums, that one is a good place to follow us. And we keep a lot of content there.
I hope that all of you listening were inspired to live more with an abundance mindset and to go out and avail yourself of this incredible, life-changing, potentially movie, Abundant. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.